In this video, I'm just going to describe a little bit about the transform tools we have here and the shape builder tool here. These are all tools that are really great to work with shapes. And basically a shape has a pivot point. So it's normally in the center by default. And this little object here is the pivot point. I'm just going to strip out the first set of tools. So we've got rotate and we've got reflect. And with rotate, I can take an anchor point, take a corner, and rotate the object. I can reset the pivot point and then rotate around that pivot point. So with that tool, it just allows you to readdress where the pivot point is. You can have a lot more control over it if you double click, and then you can either type in or dial in an angle for your pivot point. If you have preview switched on, then you'll be able to see it, and additionally you can copy. So rather than just move the original object, you can create a copy. So it's quite a nice useful tool. Reflect is exactly the same. You can readdress the pivot point that you're going to reflect over, or you can double click and have some control over the vertical and horizontal axis and the angle that you want to reflect over. Again, you can copy. So then I'm going to move on to these tools. So I have the scale tool, the shear tool, and the reshape tool. And at its basic level, the scale tool does what it says on the tin. It allows you to readdress. So basically, when I have a shape, I can always just scale it up. But notice it's scaling from the top downwards and out towards the way I'm pulling. Okay. If I use the scale tool, it's just going to allow me to scale outward from the central point, the point that we were calling the pivot point earlier, or center point, and scale tool just allows you to do that. Likewise, if you hold option, instead of using the scale tool, you could use your selection tool, hold option, and it will behave in the same way as using the scale tool. The shear tool, let's just drag this out a bit. Shear tool does what it says on the tin. It shears, and you can manipulate it. Again, you know, with all of these tools, if you double click, you're going to be able to control it a bit more carefully and copy it. And all of these double clicking features, which give you the dialog box, are the same as if I went to object. Here's object shear. So I get the same dialog box as I do when I double click it. This little tool here is an interesting tool. You might not use it very often, but it's useful, I think, particularly when you want to warp a line, because basically what it's going to do is wherever I click, it's going to add an anchor point, and it's going to allow me to warp that line. So you can transform a drawing, and then I could add another one in here, and we can create quite a nice sophisticated drawing by adding anchor points and moving at the same time. So any pre-existing drawing, I can do that too. The problem comes when I want to apply that to a shape. It's quite hard to address a shape with this tool. It doesn't appear to do anything. Okay, even though I've got the shape selected. What you have to do is you have to go to your direct selection tool, select two anchor points, and then you'll be able to reshape. And of course, if I hold shift, it will constrain it, and so on. So again, if I wanted to do this end, then I would need to go back to direct selection, grab my tool, and reshape. You can get some nice shapes quite quickly using these sorts of tools. So finally I want to come to the Shape Builder tool, and in this case the Shape Builder allows me to join shapes together, overlapping shapes, and or remove parts of it. So it works a little bit like as if we're using the Pathfinder panel, which we'll be addressing later on in more detail. But it's a very, very quick way to do it if it's just a bunch of simple shapes. So first of all, I'm going to take these shapes, and notice when I do select a group of anything really, any object at all on the artboard, a set of objects, then I get options to optimize the alignment. So in this case, I'm going to align them centrally, and everything else is fine. You can, of course, align to the side or align to the top. I'm not going to do that. I just want it to align centrally. And then I'm going to make sure I've selected all the shapes, and I'm going to pick the Shape Builder tool. The Shape Builder simply allows me to draw a line through all of those shapes and join them together. So that's a really useful tool if you're very, very quickly joining a bunch of shapes, but it also allows you to eliminate shapes as well. So if I hold Option and just draw or click, then I can also eliminate parts of a shape as well. So let's just hold Option, and then I'm just eliminating that section there. Okay.